Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Here we are from 8th group and we will discuss about sociolinguistics. And our member are consist me, Muhammad Sadamuzan, and then Muhammad Salim, and then Nailatul Amani, and the last Clarissa Agustin. Okay, to save the time, now I please you to Nailatul Amani to explain her material.
Hello everyone, now I will explain what is sociolinguistics. Sociolinguistics is the study of language in relation to social factors, including differences of regional, class, and occupational dialect, gender differences, and bilingualism. So, it studies the relationship between language and society, between the uses of language and the social structures in which the users of language live. Sociolinguistics assumes that every language has its own variations. Every dialect is also varied. Human speech is also varied depending on whom he speaks to. Language is closely related to social system and social structure, and language is a system which is not separated from the characteristics of its speakers and the sociocultural values applied by its speakers. Now, I will move on to social dialects. Social dialect is a variety of speech associated with a particular social class or occupational group within a society, also known as a sociolect, group idiolect, and class dialect. According to Peter Tragil, sociolect is a variety which is thought of as being related to its speaker's social background rather than geographical background. In social dialects, language vary in their pronunciation, vocabulary, and grammar. I will give an example. In Edinburgh, Scotland, the word home is regularly pronounced as hame, as if rhyming with fame, among lower working class speakers, and as home, as if rhyming with foam, among middle class speakers. Now I will move on to education and occupation. Although each of us has unique and different lives and circumstances that makes us having an individual way of speaking, a personal dialect or idiolect, we generally tend to sound like other people who have similar educational and or occupational background. I will give an example. The sentence, "them boys throwed something," are generally associated with speakers who have spent less time in education. Those who spend more time in the educational system tend to have more features in their spoken language that derive from a lot of time spent with the written language. So, the word through is more likely than throwed. I will give another example for occupation. From research conducted by William Leboff in the 1960s on 3 salespeople at New York City department stores, the higher the socioeconomic status of the store, the more R sounds were produced, and the lower status, the fewer R sounds were produced by those who work there. So, the frequency of this linguistic variable, R, marked the speech as upper middle class, or working class. This pattern is not always applied everywhere. It is quite possible that what happened was the opposite of the example. Now, social markers. The examples already mentioned illustrating how pronunciation and words become social markers. That is, having this feature appear frequently in our speech or not mark us as a member of a certain social group, whether we realize it or not. There is another pronunciation feature example that serves as a social marker. One feature that seems to be a fairly stable indication of lower class and lower education throughout the English-speaking world is the pronunciation of ing endings with n rather than ng. at the end of words like sitting and thinking. Pronunciations represented by sitting and thinking are typically associated with working class speech.
Okay, next I will explain about speech style and style shifting. For the first, speech style is one of the elements that cannot be separated in our daily communication. For different topics, different purpose of talking, everyone talks with different style, although he or she talks about the same thing. Speech style. This study is connected with discussing speech style related to four types of speech: speech to entertain, speech to inform, speech to stimulate, speech to convince in teens multi-level marketing presentation. And then the next is style shifting. Style shifting refers to a single speaker changing style in response to context. Also, various connotations of style are subject of study in stylistics. Style shifting. Style shifting is a manifestation or intra-speaker within speaker variation, in contrast with inter-speaker between speakers variation. Variation in speech style is pervasive as regional, social class, ethnic, and gender-based language variation. Style shifting refers to speech variation within individual speakers. There are no single style speakers, while it may vary. Everyone displays a considerable amount of style shifting in their speech. And then last is prestige. Widespread respect and admiration felt for someone or something on the basis of a perception of their achievements or quality. Next explanation will explain with my friends.
Well, I will explain about speech accommodation. Speech accommodation defined as our ability to modify our speech style toward or away from the perceived style of the persons we are talking to. This may result in convergence and divergence. First is convergence. We can adopt a speech style that attempts to reduce social distance, described as convergence, and use forms that are similar to those used by the person we are talking to. In the following example, from Holmes 2013, a teenage boy is asking to see some holiday photographs. In the first example, he is talking to his friend, and in the second example, he is talking to his friend's mother. The request is essentially the same, but the style is different as the speaker converges with the speech style of the other. When he is talking to his friend, he said, "Come on, Tony, show me." And when he is talking to his friend's mother, he said, "Excuse me, could I have a look at your photos too, Miss Hall?" The second is divergence. Divergence is a linguistic strategy whereby a member of a speech community accentuates the linguistic difference between themselves and their interlocutor. Divergence is commonly used to establish dominance or power in an interaction. For example, if a recent college graduate becomes a professor, they might be teaching students who are around the same age as them. Therefore, it is important for the professor to communicate in a way that the students are aware the professor has more authority than them. Okay, for the next, we'll explain by my friend Muhammad Salim.
Alright. Register. In linguistics, the register is defined as the way a speaker uses language differently in different circumstances. Think about the word you choose, your tone of voice, even your body language. For example, when you speak to your friends, you act more differently than when you are in a formal situation like interview or speak to your boss. This variation in formality, also called stylistic variations, are known as register in linguistics. They are determined by such a factor as social occasion, context, purpose, and audience. Registers are used in all forms of communication, including writing, spoken, and signed. Depending on grammar, syntax, and tones, register may be extremely rigid and very intimate. Next, type of linguistic register. There are 5 distinct registers that are. First is frozen. This is well known as the static register because it refers to historic language that is intended to remain unchanged like constitution and prayer. The second is formal, using language in professional, academic, and legal setting, where communication is expected to be respectful, uninterrupted, and restrained. The third is consultative. This one, people often use in conversations when they are speaking with someone who has specialized knowledge, or who is offering advice. The fourth is casual. This is one of the register, where they use a language in semi-formal when they are with friends, close accountants, and CO workers, and family also. The last is intimate. This register is reserved for special occasions, usually between only 2 people, and often provide. Okay, next. Jargon. Jargon refers to specialized language of a professional or occupational groups, while this language is often useful or necessary for those within the group. It is usually meaningless to outsiders. Some professionals have so much jargon of their own that it has its own name. For example, lawyers use legalese, while academics use academies. Jargon is also sometimes known as lingo or argot. A passage of text that is full of jargon is said to be jargony. Next, key takeaway: jargon. Jargon is the context language used by experts in a certain discipline or field. This language often helps experts communicate with clarity and precision. Next, jargon is different from slang, which is the casual language used by a particular group of people. And the last, critics of jargon believe such language does more to obscure than clarify. They argue that most jargon can be replaced with simple, direct language without sacrificing meaning. Next, list of jargon. The word is due diligence. A business term, due diligence refers to the research that should be done before making an important business decision. Second is AWOL. short for absent without leave. OWL is a military jargon used to describe a person whose whereabouts are unknown. And next, hard copy, a commentary in business, academia, and other fields. A hard copy is a physical printout of a document as opposite to an electronic copy. Next is chance. In computing, chance refers to a place for short-term memory storage. Next is DAC, a journalism term for a subheading, usually 1 or 2 sentences long, that provides a brief summary of the article that follows. Next is stats. This is a term usually used in a medical context. That means is immediately, as in call the doctor, stats. Next is phospholipid bilayer. This is a complex term for a layer of fat molecules surrounding a cell. A simpler term is cell membrane. Next is detritivore. The detritivore is an organism that feeds on detritus or dead matter. For example of detritivore, including earthworms, sea cucumbers, and millipedes. Next is holistic. Another word for comprehensive or complete. Holistic is often used by educational professionals in reference to curriculums that focuses on social and emotional learning, in addition to the traditional lesson. The next is magic bullet. This is a term for a simple solution that solves a complex problem. It is usually used decisively, as in, I don't think this pain you've come up with is a magic bullet. The last is best practice. In business, best practice is one that should be adopted because it has proven effectiveness. Alright, next. Slang. Slang is an informal, non-standard variety of speech characterized by newly coined and repeatedly changed words and phrases. In literature, colloquialisms, it is the use of informal words, phrase, or even slang in a piece of writing. Colloquial expressions tend to sneak in as writers, being a part of society, are influenced by the way people speak in society. Naturally, they are bound to add colloquial expression to their vocabulary. Slang consists of words that are non-standard in a given language and is generally spoken to show inclusions in a certain social group. The term slang reflects the dynamic of the language and therefore is very obscure and ambiguous. Most linguists and lexicographers admit that the origins of the word slang is uncertain or unknown. Next, alright. Why do people use slang? Why does slang exist? Slang fulfills at least two different functions, depending on whose point of view you take. For the group that use slang, it is a way to set themselves apart, to express themselves in a distinct and individual way, and sometimes to keep secret from being known by others. Next, alright. Example of slang. The first is clapback. It's referred to the same thing, responding to the criticisms with a withering comeback. Next is yet. Yet in exclamations of excitement, approach, surprise, or all-around energy. Often is issued when doing a dance move or throwing something. Next is limao. It's one of many common words used in the text messaging, instant messaging, chatting, and on Facebook and Twitter. Limo is an acronym that stands for Loving My Ass Off. Next is SLAT, or Slime Love All the Time. And last is LOL. LOL is an acronym of Loud Out Loud. Laugh Out Loud. It can be used as interjections and a verb. LOL is one of the most common slang terms in electronic communications. Even though it means laugh out loud, LOL is mostly used to indicate smiling or slight amusement. Next is jargon versus slang. Jargon should not to confuse with slang, which is informal, colloquial language sometimes used by a group or groups of people. The main difference is one of register. Jargon is formal language unique to a specific discipline or field, while slang is common, informal language that is more likely to be spoken than written. Alright, next, taboo terms. Taboo terms. Taboo terms was borrowed from Tangon, a Polynesia language meaning forbidden. The certain topics within are socially forbidden are body parts, bodily function, sexual activity and practice, religions, ideological. Overdonating one of the taboo topics is sometimes called a taboo word, or linguistic taboo, or verbal taboo. Next, clarification of taboo terms. The first is once mother-in-law. This term is used to describe a woman who has an affair with many partners. For example, son of bitch, motherfucker. Yes, sorry about that. Next is certain games animal. This term is connected with the religious belief that practiced from prehistoric times. In some religions, animals are closely associated with God. For instance, a bull with called Apis is considered a representative of the god Osher, the ibis with the sacred to God. Next is sex. This term refers to sexual activity, like. Alright, next, death. This term refers to something that makes people fear to hurt it, like the word go to hell. Yeah, next, excretion. This term has connected with the human excretory, for instance, shit and piss. Next is bodily functions. This term related to the human organs, such as can and cook. Right. Next is religious manner. This term relates to God, such as God, Kali, Gi, Jingo, Jesus, or God damns you. The last is the left hand, the original means sinister. This term refers to the symbol of sexual intercourse by showing the middle finger of the left hand, such as fuck you or scream you.
Okay, that's our explanation, and if you guys have any question, you can ask to us in the forum discussion. And the last I say thank you very much for your nice attention, and assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.